Hello, welcome to the QuarkXPress 9 eSeminar series. This month we're going to talk about automatic text formatting with conditional styles. I'm Dan Logan, I'm on the product management team here at Quark. So what is a conditional style exactly? Well, it's a new feature in version 9 that allows you to create a behavior that automatically applies multiple style sheets to a block of text based on the content of that text itself. You can define text patterns as conditions that trigger styling events. This allows you to format text anywhere in a story, including special formatting at the end of a specific block like a paragraph, section, or story. And the cool thing about conditional styles is that they're dynamic. They automatically update if you change the content of the text or if you change the rules within the conditional style. Now, this is one of my favorite features in QuarkXPress 9 because it's always really satisfying to be able to automate something in your layout. Once you've created a styling sequence and you want to be able to easily apply it multiple times throughout your document. This feature comes under what we call the design-driven automation category of QuarkXPress 9. We came up with the phrase design-driven automation during development because we knew that we were going to do a lot of automation-oriented features, things to help designers reapply the designs that they've created manually when they have different content or when content changes. But we clarified it as being design driven because we wanted it to fit two characteristics. First was that even though you were automating some of your layout production, we wanted you to be able to have all of the control of QuarkXPress. In Quark, you're used to being able to go in and manipulate formatting down to a very low level, like fully customize the position of your text and all of its attributes. And so we didn't want the designer to have to give up any of that control in order to automate things. And secondly, we wanted it to expose these features in ways where they were very usable by regular graphic designers, creative professionals. We did not want to create automation features that could only be used by people who can write scripts and can work with things like AppleScript and complex scripting languages. We wanted it to be very GUI driven, very kind of human readable behaviors. So let's take a look quickly at how this works. We're going to go into QuarkXPress 9, and what we're looking at here is an unformatted text block. It is entered in a very specific sort of pattern, and I'm going to apply a conditional style to see what sorts of things we can do with it. You apply conditional styles on the Conditional Styles palette, which is found under the Window menu. So I'm going to click Window and go down to Conditional Styles. And I'm going to select all of my text, and we have a conditional style in here called Product Line. When I click on that, you can see that it immediately applied a lot of formatting to my block here, including multiple character level style sheets. This is the kind of styling sequence that previously I would have had to have applied manually by selecting each of these discrete ranges and then selecting a style sheet from the style sheets palette. So how does this work? What did I actually do here? Well, let's take a look at the conditional style. I have it selected on the Conditional Styles palette. I'm just going to click the Edit button. And we can see here what a conditional style looks like. Basically, it's a behavior that is made up of a number of different actions. Each action within a conditional style can do one of two things. It can either apply a style sheet, or it can go to a specific area of text. It does have a concept of sort of a virtual cursor position. And when you create the conditional style, you should think of that cursor position, know about the location of the text that cursor is in at any given time so that you can apply these style sheet and go actions. So the first column in each action defines its type. It's either going to apply a style or move the cursor with the go command. Most of the time you'll be applying a style. In that case, in the second column, you define the style sheet that you want to apply. Now you can select from any of the style sheets within your project, either character or paragraph style sheets. The third column is the scope of that action. Do I want it to apply up to a particular condition and then stop? Or should it go to that condition and then apply itself through the end of that condition? Scope can also tell it to send the cursor backwards. Sometimes I want to move up to a particular condition and then apply formatting backwards from that position. That lets me apply formatting to things at the end of a block. The fourth column is how many instances of the condition must be met before it evaluates that condition to true. So for example, if I were doing, as in this case, my condition is character tab, and if I put 2 in there, then it wouldn't do anything. It wouldn't stop applying that formatting until it reached the second instance of the character tab. The fifth column is the most important one, and it is the condition that we're looking for. Now, all of these conditions are characteristics of the text itself, so it does have to be something about the actual text content. You can't look for a formatting attribute as a condition, for example. So you can't say like, when the text is bold, then do something. What we're looking for is characters within the text. So add a delimiter like tab, or a certain number of words. You'll see that the types of conditions we find in here are add a particular character, add a number. Now a number can actually be multiple characters, including non-numeric characters like periods and commas and percent symbols, currency symbols, and things like that. Those are all considered part of a number. So for example, if I wanted to find $3,227, it would see that entire string as a single number. Text is a phrase or a word. It's essentially more than one character in a particular sequence. An engineer would call this a string, but basically it's just like a phrase. It's a string of text larger than one character. Number of characters and number of sentences and words is just what it sounds like. For example, apply the style sheet through a certain number of characters. And we're going to use that number column to define exactly how many characters we're going to format through. Of course, you can also go to locations that are known within the sort of syntax of your text, such as the beginning of a sentence, the end of the sentence, or the beginning or end of a paragraph or story. Now, story is a concept that some people don't think about in QuarkXPress. Story does not mean a text box. Story essentially means the entire range of text that is in one or more linked text boxes. So if you have a text flow that's linking through multiple boxes, collectively that text block is called a story. You know a story because when you put your cursor inside text and do a select all the text that gets highlighted, which may be in multiple text boxes, that's what we consider to be a story. And then some conditions will allow us to type in more properties in this last field, such as text. I would actually double click within this last field and enter that text, right? This is the text that I'm looking for. Finally, in the last columns are the add remove buttons, and these let me add additional actions or delete actions from the list. Okay, so let's take a closer look at how this particular conditional style works. I'm going to zoom in a little bit and we'll turn on invisibles so that we see all of the characters here within this text. I'm going to go back into our product line conditional style and we'll see how it works. The first thing that we're doing is apply the style sheet called header through one instance of the character tab. You can see here that after the product name, Bishop2, we have a tab character. We have a consistent structure here to where the product name is always followed by a tab character, and our conditional style can pick up on that sequence. So apply header through first instance of character tab. Now you can see here that I entered the tab not literally by pressing the tab key on the keyboard, but by entering this, what we call an escape sequence, where we can describe an invisible character or a special character using normal other characters. This idea of escape sequence is not new to conditional styles. The Find Change palette, for example, has used these types of escape sequences for a long time in QuarkXPress. Now, if you don't have to remember exactly what that escape sequence is. If you don't remember, you can always copy and paste it. So what you would do in this case is you'd go copy that tab character onto the clipboard, select it, and then select Edit, Copy. Then we're going to go into our conditional style, and in the field there we can just hit Command or Control V for paste, and it will paste that character in using the escape sequence that it knows it needs to use to represent that particular invisible character. So we've formatted through the end of that tab, so now the cursor will be at the beginning of this $sign. So then the next action in our list is to apply the style sheet numbers, that's this orange style, through the end of that paragraph. You can see here we have a paragraph mark at the end of this line, so we know that we can go ahead and apply all the way through the end of that paragraph mark, which is the condition end of paragraph. Then we get into our body copy on the next line. So our third action is to apply the style sheet body, that's a paragraph style, up to the first instance of the text ... The ... is the delimiter that we're using between these sections. Now, why don't I go through the end of this paragraph? Well, this section is going to have an indeterminate number of paragraphs. This is going to be one or more paragraphs of the style sheet body. So in that case, I don't want to use the paragraph mark as the next condition. But when I get to an ellipses, then I know that that's the end of the section. So my logic in my conditional style is to apply body up to, meaning right before the first instance of text ellipses. Then apply my ellipses style sheet through the end of that paragraph, which is this cyan formatting here. Now, in some cases I apply a paragraph style, and in some cases I apply a character style. How do you know when to do which? Well, basically the same way as you would normally decide as you're creating style sheets. If all of the characters within that block of paragraphs have the same character formatting, then you can go ahead and just use a paragraph style that has embedded character formatting. However, in some cases, such as numbers up here, you have to use a character style because you have multiple different treatments of character formatting within the same paragraph. So in this first line, I took care of the product name character formatting in the header paragraph style. But then I had to follow that up with this different character formatting on the numbers, the orange part, with a dedicated character style sheet. And then finally, when I'm all done setting that up, I check this option at the bottom called Repeat Conditional Style at, and you can define a condition at which to repeat your conditional style behavior. In this case, I use the conditional style marker, which is this invisible character that's inserted at the beginning of each section. And I'll talk a little bit later about how the conditional style marker works. So like I said, the cool thing about conditional styles is that they're dynamic. So if I want to come in and create a new section, all I have to do is put in my conditional style marker. I'm going to put in my new product name. When I hit tab, and start typing in these numbers, you can see it automatically switches to my number character style. When I hit return, now I get my body style, and it's going to continue with that style until I hit return and hit ... That's my delimiter, and it will format all of that automatically. Okay, let's go back to slides for a second. So this slide basically talks about everything I just discussed, the meaning of each column, and how you actually construct a conditional style. So how does this really work sort of from beginning to end? I didn't really show the entire process. The first thing that you should do is create the style sheets that you want the conditional style to apply. And actually, before you create the style sheets, I would recommend that you format your text sequence. So format your sequence manually, then go through and select each unique area of text, create a style sheet from it, either a paragraph or character style, then you'll be ready to construct your conditional style. So step 2 is identify the conditions that exist within your text that you can use as triggers. So you're going to want to have predictable delimiters between areas of unique formatting. Where you don't have patterns like that, you can use the conditional style marker, but that has to be inserted manually. So your best bet is to get runs of text that have a predictable sequence of formatting that you can turn into logic in your conditional style. You create the conditional style either from the Conditional Styles palette, which is under the window menu, that's what we just looked at, or by selecting Edit Conditional Styles. We'll take a look at that one real quick. Under the Edit menu, you can come down to Conditional Styles, and then you get this sort of traditional dialogue, same as style sheets, where you can create new, you can edit existing, you can duplicate them, delete them, append them from other projects, and so on. So that is under the Edit menu. Okay. To apply a conditional style to text, once you've created it, you want to select all of the text that you're going to apply it to, and then click the conditional style on the Conditional Styles palette. Conditional styles are a paragraph level attribute, so just like paragraph style sheets, for example, it will apply to the entire paragraph that you have selected when you apply it from the palette. All right, let's take a look at another example. In this example, I have a much longer block. I have the entire chapter of a book here, and I just want to show how it can handle that very easily. So I'm going to do a select all. You can see that I have many pages of text selected. And then on this Conditional Styles palette, I'm going to apply the one called Recipes. This one will take just a quick second, and now you can see all the formatting that it applied to those pages. Basically, my chapter is divided into sections where each section is a separate recipe. If I turn on invisibles, you'll see that I put the conditional style marker at the beginning of each recipe. And let's go into our conditional style behavior and see how that works. So I'm just going to click Edit on the palette, and we'll take a look at the logic here. So the first thing that I'm going to do is apply a paragraph style called recipe name. That's this guy here, Clams Casio, through the end of that paragraph. For things like, headings and subheads and things like that, you're going to be using through end of the paragraph a lot as the scope and condition anytime you want the same formatting applied to an entire paragraph. So it gets to the end, and then it says now apply the style sheet called serving size through the end of that paragraph, and that's this line here that says serves for. The third action is to apply the style sheet head note, which is this first italics paragraph here under the serving size. Now, this could be multiple paragraphs. I don't know how many paragraphs that's going to be, so I cannot use the condition through end of the paragraph. Instead, I'm going to apply it up to the first instance of the text /p/p. Now, \p is the escape sequence for a paragraph mark, right? A carriage return, the end of a paragraph. So I'm going to apply until I experience two consecutive carriage returns. So it's this one and this one down here. That's how the double carriage return is how it knows that it's done with that section. So it's going to go up to that text. So actually the cursor is still up here within the headnote section. Then I want to get down into the next. I'm going to say go ahead and go to the next paragraph. And then apply, now I'm in this empty paragraph mark here. So then I want to apply the style sheet body copy to that empty paragraph mark. So I'm going to apply body copy through the end of that paragraph. Now it's down in my ingredients list. So apply the style sheet ingredients up to the first instance of text, again, double paragraph mark. That's how we know that we've come out of the ingredients section. I can't do end of paragraph because this, as you can see, is built out of multiple paragraphs. Once it gets up to the beginning of that double carriage return, then go to the next paragraph, which is the empty one down here. Again, apply the body copy style through the end of that paragraph. Even though that's an empty paragraph mark, I still want to apply a predictable style sheet to it so that all of my spacing is consistent. Then, when you get into this first paragraph of the recipe itself, I want to apply a style sheet called paragraph 1. The first paragraph in my recipe is slightly different than the rest. In this case, you can see they did not put a first line indent on that paragraph. So apply paragraph 1 through the end of that paragraph. I know that that is always going to be one paragraph. And then finally, apply body copy through the end of the story. Now, in this case, it never will really get to the end of the story. That's because it will hit this repeat conditional style at conditional style marker before it actually reaches the end of the story. But when I want to say, apply this style sheet basically to the end until you get to a repeat condition, then I'm going to use end of story as that scope. And that is how this sequence is created. And you can see that it did a lot of style sheet application that would be pretty tedious to apply throughout my entire chapter, and it did it all automatically. And if I zoom into any of those recipes, you can see that it has the perfect predictable formatting that I created. Let's go back to the beginning and look at another example. Up here I have a pull quote, and we'll just select that. We'll go over to the Conditional Styles palette and we will apply our pull quote conditional style. And it applied two style sheets in this particular case. And one of those style sheets is at the end of that run of text. So how did it do that? How did it know to go all the way to the end and do something? So if we edit the pull quote conditional style, it's very simple. And the way it works is it says first apply the pull quote style, which is this main style, through the end of the story. Go all the way to the end. This is not a very long story, but that is the scope of story, is this particular box. Then apply a style called pull quote credit. In this case, it's a paragraph style because I'm going to apply it to this entire paragraph backwards from the end of the story through the beginning of that paragraph. Anytime you select beginning of paragraph or beginning of sentence as a condition, it's going to automatically change the scope to backwards through because it knows that it has to go backwards to get to the beginning of something. So another thing you'll notice is the scope pop-up menu, the options available there are determined by the condition that you select in the condition column. To get to the beginning of that paragraph, the paragraph that the cursor is currently in, you can only do that by going backwards. So backwards through is the only option under the scope menu. So while you're building a behavior, if the scope menu does not have the scope that you're looking for, go over to the condition column and set the correct condition there, and then you'll probably get the scope that you're looking for. Okay, let's go back to slides. So how do these things actually work under the hood? Well, conditional styles are project level resources, just like any other resources in QuarkXPress, like style sheets or color swatches or anything like that. They can be appended to other projects, and they can be managed across an entire work group via Quark job jackets. So if you have a collaborative work group, you might want to use job jackets to get everyone using the same conditional styles. Like I said before, they are applied at the paragraph level, but one thing to keep in mind is that they don't show up in the paragraph attributes dialog. They're not an attribute that directly affects the appearance of text. They're more like style sheets themselves. Paragraph style sheet, for example, is also applied at the paragraph level, but it doesn't show up in the paragraph attributes dialog because it's not like leading or indent or some other attribute that has a direct effect on the formatting of that paragraph. When you apply conditional styles to multiple consecutive paragraphs, then the behavior will see those paragraphs as a single block. So if you apply your conditional style to 3 consecutive paragraphs and then you say go to the end, it's going to go to the end of that third paragraph. An apply action or a go action cannot address an area of a block that's outside the block that you applied the style to. We'll take a look at an example of this. But just like any other paragraph attribute, they remain on the text during copy paste and other duplication commands. So sometimes you might see some weird behavior if you copy an individual paragraph from one text box that maybe is part of a larger block, and then you paste it into another text box. It will bring with it its conditional style reference, but it may not have the same relationship to its block than it originally did, and so you may get weird behavior when you paste it. Sometimes you want to remove the conditional style if you have that sort of problem. But let's go back and look at some more examples illustrating how these are applied to blocks. So the first thing that we're going to do is I have an example here that's multiple consecutive paragraphs. You can see we have a few carriage returns in this text. And I have a conditional style called repeat combined error. Now if I apply that, I get some really beautiful looking formatting here. And it looks good, I guess. Let's go look at the conditional style and see if it's doing the right thing. So the first thing it's doing is applying the red style through one number of words. We see that. Then apply green through 2 words. It's doing that. Apply blue through the end of the paragraph. Yep, check, okay. Then apply magenta through 2 words. Well, I don't see that anywhere here. Why is it not applying magenta? The reason we're not seeing any of that magenta text is because the repeat condition is evaluating to true before that magenta text has an opportunity to apply itself. So you can't have behaviors whose scopes are outside the range that is controlled by a repeat. So always keep that in mind. If I wanted to repeat every other paragraph, then I would have to do it a little bit differently. Let's select that text and then try this other conditional style called repeat combined. Okay, so there I'm getting the right sequence, and let's go ahead and take a look at that one. In this one, I have the exact same logic at the top, but the repeat condition is different. In this case, I'm repeating the conditional style at the conditional style marker, which I have inserted in my text in this 3rd and 5th paragraph. So be aware of the scope of the application of a conditional style, and when you're repeating, make sure that your repeat isn't becoming true before your behavior has had a chance to apply itself. Okay, let's go down here and take a look at another example of how this works. Let's say I take a bunch of consecutive paragraphs and I apply a conditional style that is set to repeat at every paragraph. But what if I want a different conditional style to apply in the middle of this? Well, that's fine. I can do another repeating condition because in this case, I've applied 3 different blocks. Here's block 1, right? A series of consecutive paragraphs with the same conditional style set to repeat at every paragraph. Block 2 is here, and then block 3. So I don't want to belabor this point, but you do have to really, keep this idea in mind. Another issue here is if you're using a condition that doesn't even exist in the block. So for example, if you say, go to the end of the story and then apply formatting backwards 1 word. That will only work if you've applied that conditional style up to the end of that story. For end of story to evaluate to true, the condition has to be within the block that you applied the conditional style to. Okay, so the conditional style marker. I've mentioned the conditional style marker a few times, but let's take a closer look at it. Like I said, you really want to use conditions that are inherent in your text flow, like tabs and periods and number of words and things like that. Sometimes, though, there is not a character in the text for you to key off of, and you essentially have to force a condition within the text. That is what the conditional style marker is for. If I turn on invisibles, say I go into the View menu, turn on Text Invisibles, this is going to show me the non-printing characters in my text flow. I can see the conditional style marker right here. It is this little upright bar with the flag at the bottom. I insert that character with the key command Option-Shift / or Control-Alt-Shift / on Windows. I know that's not easy to remember, so when you forget it, all you have to do, let's delete it in this case. And of course, it changed all of my text because this is under the control of the conditional style. But if I forget the keystroke, I can always go under the Utilities menu to Insert Character, Special, Conditional Style Marker down here towards the bottom, and it will show me the key command there, Command-Option-Shift / to remind me. But when I insert that character, now it triggers that behavior, and it's going to go ahead and apply my formatting. So that's what the conditional style marker is for. Okay, so let's get into some more detail here. What about local formatting? This is a question that a lot of people have. How does it deal with local formatting? So you know that local formatting exists when your run of text has some formatting attribute that does not match what's in the style sheet that's applied. Sometimes local formatting is unavoidable. Like, for example, when you have to selectively apply emphasis like italics or bold or things like that in your text flow. Well, the question that comes up, how does it deal with local formatting? As far as the answer, I would encourage you to remember that all conditional styles do is apply style sheets. And generally speaking, the answer to any question like this is, well, how do style sheets normally work? And the answer is always going to be the same for conditional styles. So think of conditional styles as only an automated way of doing what you're already doing. All it does is apply styles as if you had selected all of that text manually and clicked on the style sheet yourself in the style sheets palette. How conditional styles reacts to formatting text will always match the behavior that you would get from normal style sheet application. So let's go take a look at local formatting. Okay, so this is the block where I applied my conditional style previously. So essentially, I can apply local formatting. So for example, let's say I want this guy's name to be italic. When I select that text now and I bring up the Style Sheets palette, let's go ahead and bring both of those up. Okay, it's going to show me the style sheet applied to that text via the conditional style and indicate that it has local formatting. Up here on the button, it will tell me that that local formatting is that it is set to italics. Now, let's say that I had local formatting before I applied the conditional style. So I'm going to go to no conditional style. So this no longer is under the control of a conditional style, and we'll set the normal style sheet on it. And now let's make one word, let's say a different color, and we'll make it a different font. Okay, so now when I select that word, it's going to tell me local formatting, and it is color and font. Now when I select that entire block and I apply our conditional style again, pull quote, you can see that it retained that particular local formatting. Well, that's how style sheets work. So when you select text that has local formatting already and you change the style sheet reference, it does not disturb existing local formatting. So what do you do about this? Let's say that your intent was not to retain that local formatting. You want it to be overridden. Well, there are two ways to deal with that. The most obvious would be to just reapply this style with override local formatting. You can do that by option clicking the style sheet name, or in version 9 we even have the command apply style sheet and remove local formatting. And so now it reverted table back to the attributes that are in that style sheet. But I mentioned there was another way. So the other way is to remove the local formatting before you even apply the conditional style. So in this case I had normal applied. I could just option click normal, remove that local formatting before I apply the conditional style, and now I'm good. So what about applying local formatting after you've already applied the conditional style? That's fine too, but it has some limits. So like I said, sometimes you have to apply local formatting, but the key here is apply it directly on the measurements palette or the paragraph or character attributes dialog. Do not try to apply a different style sheet to text that's under the control of conditional styles. That's because conditional styles are applied dynamically. They're constantly revalidated to make sure that they're correct. And you don't want the revalidation of a conditional style to wipe out some other style sheet reference that you've applied. So let's take a look at that, for example. If I select this paragraph, its paragraph style sheet is applied by the conditional style, a conditional style called pull quote. So if I try and apply a different paragraph style to it, it's not even going to let me do it. You can see it's not doing anything when I'm clicking these other paragraph styles, and when I reselect that text, you'll see it still has pull quote assigned to it. However, I am not applying a character style through this conditional style. So if I want to, I can still select individual words and apply a different character style sheet to that word. And even if I reapply this conditional style, it will retain that local style sheet reference. That said, my recommendation is not to make it a habit to locally override the style sheets of text that's under the control of a conditional style. Okay, I hope that was clear enough. So how do you remove a conditional style from text? Sometimes you want to use it to automatically apply your formatting, but then you want to remove it because you don't want to deal, maybe you want to apply some local style sheet formatting, things like that. Well, it's really easy. There are basically two ways, or there are two different methods. There's one way. The way you do it is under the conditional styles palette pop-up menu, which is this little icon to the right of the header of the Conditional Styles palette. There are two commands at the bottom that let me remove the conditional style, and they do it in two different ways. The first is to revert the selected text to base styles. That means change that text back to what it was before I applied the conditional style. In this case, it was normal, so it changes it back to normal. More often than that, though, you're going to want to remove the conditional style but leave the formatting in place. That is the top command called resolve conditional styles on selected text. That means change the selected text to no conditional style, but leave the style sheet references alone that were applied by the conditional style. So notice right now this text is set to pull quote. We're going to do resolve conditional styles. Now it's set to no conditional style, but the formatting was left alone. So that's how you would go about removing a conditional style from text. Okay, some tips. All right, so my advice is, like I said earlier, before you try to create your conditional style, go ahead and set some text. Try and do one page or one block worth of formatting manually by literally using the measurements palette and the character and paragraph attributes dialogues to format the text manually until it looks right. Then make style sheets based off of that text and then create your conditional style. Only use conditional styles on predictable sequences. You've seen here that all of the examples that I've done, the text run has met a very specific sequence in terms of the delimiters that will be available. If any of your apply or go conditions do not ever evaluate to true, if you say go up to the tab and then do something and it never finds tab, then it will not execute any more actions in that conditional style. So this does require some structure in terms of the content that you're applying it to. If you want to style something at the end of a block, and by block I mean that could be sentence, paragraph, block of consecutive paragraphs, or story, the way you do that is to send the cursor all the way to the end of that block with a go or an apply action and then work backwards from there. So when you say, I want to style the last character or the last sentence or something like that, you're going to use this backwards technique. Sometimes you have cases where within a single story you need to apply multiple conditional styles. So for example, in the case where you have a beginning, then a repeated sequence in the middle of a story, and then maybe you have an ending, at first you want to try to do that with a single conditional style. You can't do that because right now we don't have super complex logical operators like ifs and loops and things like that. So you can't say do this formatting and then when you get to this other condition enter into this loop, and then when you get to yet another condition then break out of that loop or something like that. You can't yet do that. So when you have cases like that, you just need to apply it with multiple conditional styles, and we'll take a quick look at one of those examples. So here I have a bunch of unformatted text and some conditional styles. So I'm going to need to select separately each block that has a unique type of formatting. So we'll start with the beginning. The beginning of my story goes down to here, and I'm going to apply the beginning conditional style. And that gave me my headlines, my subhead, and my byline, my first paragraph drop cap. Even the character of that drop cap is different. But then I get into the area of text that is going to have my repeating sequence, which actually should have started here. So now I'm going to select from here to the end of my sequence, and I'll apply middle sequence to that block. There you go. So now it's going into my repeated sequence where I'm using repeat at conditional style marker to make little mini sections. And then my very last section down here, the end of my article, I'm going to apply ending to, which gives me my little article ending character, this cyan box at the end. So I did have to apply 3 different conditional styles, but you can see that it still formatted this page much, much quicker than it would have if I were applying those styles manually. Okay, and then finally on tips, turn on invisibles when you're troubleshooting a conditional style. So if you're trying to think about how to build it or why it's doing what it's doing, go under View, go to Invisibles or Command or Control I. Make sure you're aware of the spaces, the carriage return, the paragraph marks, things like that, so you know what conditions actually exist in that text while you're troubleshooting a behavior or creating it. So I definitely recommend using invisibles. All right, let's take a look at, let's see, better go back to slides. Is it enough demo time? Demo time. All right, so let's take a look at kind of a fun demo and see what other crazy things are possible with conditional styles. What I have in this case, as you can see, is kind of a cool little spiral effect with text, where the text is going down a spiraled path and getting smaller as it goes. So the first question you might ask is, well, how did I make this spiral in QuarkXPress with the Bezier pin? Well, there's another new feature in QuarkXPress 9 called Shape Maker, and we have some videos on how to use that. I'm not going to get into that right now, but I did use Shape Maker to create this spiral. But then I created a conditional style called Spiral that lets me make the text go smaller as it goes around my shape here. So let's just select that. And you can see that this effect is totally dynamic. If I just press the X key, you can see that as the text moves around the spiral, it gets smaller and smaller until it disappears into the void. Now, why would I want to do this? Because this might be a template. This might be dynamic text. This could be, personalized content that is, inserted from a database or something like that. And the contents of this text is going to change from instance to instance. And I don't want to have to reformat it every time. I want it to disappear into that void no matter what it says. If we look at that conditional style, it's actually really simple. Basically, I have a bunch of style sheets in this document, I don't know, about maybe 20, where each one is a little bit smaller than the one before it. And I have a sequence here where I apply it through a certain number of characters. At the beginning, I start out at 85 points, and I go through 3 characters before I advance to the next one. As the size gets smaller, I increase the number of characters that I apply it to until I get to the bottom. I'm going every 9 characters when I get down to the kind of sub 12 point sizes. And then at the very end, I'm all the way down to 3-point text. And at that one, I'm going to keep going through the end of that story. And again, the text can actually say anything, right? The quick brown fox. If I copy that and paste it multiple times, and there it goes into the void. So that's kind of fun. You can do some pretty cool stuff with conditional styles. Okay, story editor. Okay, so we're going to talk about a couple of other features here really quick, not directly related to conditional styles, but related to editing text and applying style sheets. So story editor, what is that? Well, it's a dedicated text editing workspace that presents the text to you in a formatting independent way. It basically just looks like a down and dirty word processor. So why would you want that? Well, sometimes it's not practical to edit text in your rich layout view. Maybe the text is very, very small, or it has a lot of complex jumps and you want to see it as an entire block, or it's reversed out, or text on a path, or whatever. And perfect example right here is our spiraling text. might want to edit portions of this story, and I don't want to deal with this crazy spiraling formatting. Well, all I have to do is click on that text and go down to Story Editor. It will open up a separate window and show me that text content, right, in just a very straightforward way. And here I can make some edits to it. In fact, I can change the whole thing, right? I can change it back to its original text of, space, the final frontier. And you can see that as I type over here in the story editor view, it's live updating my rich layout view over here. And let's say I put so much text in there that it oversets the box. It causes overflow. As soon as I get that overflow symbol, you can see that it starts drawing the text in the story editor with a red background. And that's a nice little visual cue for you that you have overset that box. So while you're in the story editor, you don't have to worry about, oh, did I put in too much text? Have I overset? Do I need to go back to the layout view and check out that text box? So what I'm going to do in this case is just select all of that text that I overset, delete it, and my overflow symbol went away. So that's the story editor. Another area of enhancement in version 9 related to style sheets is that we have a lot of new ways to apply, well, I shouldn't say apply, we have new methods for how to deal with local formatting when applying or reapplying a style sheet. Now, if you use style sheets a lot, then you're going to know what I'm talking about here. Let's take a look at an example. So I have my pull quote text here. It uses a style sheet. We're no longer connected to conditional styles. I'm just going to close that palette. What I talk about from here is just related to style sheets. It doesn't care about whether or not you're using conditional styles. But basically, again, local formatting is when the attributes of the text do not match the attributes that are defined in the style sheet. Some of them are deliberate, such as italics. We'll make the name Williams italicized. Others you have to get rid of. Like, let's say at some point someone came along and they applied a different color to that text. Or maybe they took one word and applied a different size. Maybe a obviously different size, or maybe it's not so obvious. But the point is, when you click in this paragraph, it's going to show you over here on the style sheets palette that has local formatting. It does that by showing you the plus symbol. The plus icon here on the style sheet name means that it has local formatting. And the update style sheet button is going to tell us what that local formatting is. In the case of my selection here, it tells us that it's a different color. You colored it Pantone 103, and that's not what's defined in the style sheet. So there's always been a way to deal with this in QuarkXPress, and that is you can reapply the style sheet or apply a new one using the Option key on the keyboard, and that overrides all local formatting. So in this case, I would go to pull quote and I would Option click it, and it got rid of all my local formatting. But something bad happened. It also got rid of this italics, and that italics, probably I didn't want it to go away. I probably did not want to override that. So we have, let me just reapply that italic, actually undo. Okay. We have some new commands in version 9 under the style sheets context menu, new options for how to apply a style. And the very first one is apply style sheet and retain local type styles. And that is apply style sheet while removing local formatting, but retaining local type styles. So when I use this command, now it got rid of the color and the font size here, but it retained italic. And when it says type styles, it means everything under the styles section of character attributes. So not just italic, but bold, super subscript, outline, underline, all the stuff that you have to apply independently of style sheets. So again, I think if you use style sheets a lot, you know what I'm talking about, and you're probably welcoming this change. The other options under there are you can do the same but retain not only type styles but also open type styles. Things like include swashes, use fractions, things like that. Everything under the open type section of the character attributes dialog. Apply style sheet and remove local formatting. That is the equivalent of the legacy option click, the style sheet name. So if we go, I'm going to undo back to this state. If I had selected that option, apply style sheet and remove local formatting, it's going to remove everything, including that italics up here. That one, again, we already had it. I just wanted to put it in the UI so that it wasn't invisible functionality. You didn't have to read the manual to know to press the option key. The one under that, apply style sheet and remove local paragraph formatting. Sometimes you want to wipe out local paragraph formatting but leave all your local character formatting. You may have used a different color, for example, to indicate emphasis within a paragraph, or for whatever reason you legitimately modified the character attributes locally. So we now let you go ahead and override local paragraph formatting without disturbing the character level. And then finally, apply style sheet and maintain appearance. This will let you apply a style without affecting how that text looks at all. And you might wonder, well, why would I want to do that? And the answer is, in some cases, there are some workflows designed around using style sheets to tag text. So in some cases, you need to apply a style sheet reference, but you don't want to affect what that text looks like because you've already set it and you don't want to disturb it. That's what apply style sheet and maintain appearance is for. This last set of new commands down here at the bottom, this is all about applying the next style attribute to existing text. You probably know we have this attribute of paragraph style sheets called next style right here. Right now I'm in pull quote, and then I have this pull quote credit here. I might say next style is going to be pull quote credit. Let me go back to normal on this block. Previously in QuarkXPress, next style only got applied while I was typing and I hit the enter key. If I had existing paragraphs that I imported from a word processor or I had just already typed, I could not apply the next style to those existing paragraphs because it only happened when I hit the enter key. Now with these new context menu commands, I would just select all of that text, go to the pull quote style, which is the one that has the next style reference in it, and say apply using next style. In that case, as soon as it gets to the first paragraph return in that selection, if that style sheet has a next style reference, it's going to go ahead and apply it. So now when I apply it, I get my pull quote credit down here. And then of course there are some other variations on that, such as apply using next style and retain local type style. So it's sort of some combinations of next style and the local formatting handling that we talked about above. So our style sheet context menu has gotten a lot bigger. Some of these commands are sort of long and a little laborious to read. I apologize for all of that, but again, I think these are going to be welcome additions by anyone who uses style sheets a lot. So let's see. And yeah, this is, I think I covered all this. I did. Okay. Well, that's it for this e-seminar. I hope you learned a lot, and I hope you're going to go do some really cool stuff with conditional styles. I encourage you, if you have not already bought QuarkXPress 9, to go to our website, www.quark.com, and download the 30-day test drive. It's a fully functional test drive version. You can save documents. The only limitation is that it is time-bombed for 30 days. Again, my name is Dan Logan. If you have any questions, go ahead and send those to me at dlogan@quark.com, and I'll get back to you. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you at the next QuarkXPress 9 e-seminar.